Hey fellow gamers, Chatty Sisa here. You most probably heard about the layoffs at BioWare this year in 2023, which might impact some franchises going forward, like Dragon Age. Considering this and the fact that the new release of Dragon Age Dreadwolf was postponed to next year in 2024, let's have a look in the meantime at why one of the previous games in the franchise isn't as bad as some critics say, and why it's still worth playing even today, 12 years later, while we're waiting for Dreadwolf's release. The story of Dragon Age 2 revolves around the main protagonist named Hawk, who can be either male or female depending on your choices in the character creator. You have 3 options to choose your class, and Hawk can be either a mage, a warrior, or a rogue, each coming with a unique set of abilities. Unlike other Dragon Age games, in Dragon Age 2 the only race option is to play as a human. At the start of the story, Hawk is fleeing as a refugee from Ferelden, together with his or her family, which is directly tied to the happenings of Dragon Age Origins. You can either import one of your Origins saves into Dragon Age 2, or you can choose at the start of the game some key information regarding the Warden from Dragon Age Origins as a pre-built history for Dragon Age 2. It won't have a very big impact on your playthrough though. It'll only show in general in some of the dialogues or in a few cameo character appearances. You'll get to meet, for example, Zevran or Alistair, but in general Dragon Age 2 is supposed to be an independent and separate story within the Dragon Age universe. Once you arrive in Kirkwall, the town Hawk is meant to make their new home, you'll have to start building friendships, business relationships, and in general work on your reputation to improve Hawk's standing in life and become someone important in the city. You'll be inevitably experiencing the main plot point of the game, the growing conflict between the mages and the Templars within the city, and sooner or later Hawk will have to decide which side he or she will support. The game shows us both the good and the evil sides of the mages and of the Templars, so some decisions within the game are not coming easy to Hawk. The writers did a fantastic job here in character development. Not just for the main protagonist, but also for Hawk's companions and other characters throughout the town. The whole story takes place over a period of about a decade, so in all honesty, not seeing any development here would have been quite strange and would have made the characters static and bland. Hawk will have at the beginning of the game 2 younger siblings, the twins Bethany, a mage, and Carver, a warrior. During the prologue, one of them will die. That's how the game is set up, and it is unavoidable. Which one will depend on your choice of Hawk's class. If Hawk is a mage, Bethany dies. If you choose to be a warrior or a rogue, Carver dies. This is to ensure that during the prologue's fights, you'll have an ally at your side who has different complementing abilities than your own character. The fact that Hawk has lost already a sibling will also not make some in-game choices later on very easy. What I personally liked here was that Hawk is not some predestined special being with some unusual capabilities, whom everyone expects to save the whole world, but that you start out as a simple refugee from Ferelden and actually have to work your way up through all the quests and improve your reputation within the city. It was much more relatable to me as a player, and I believe it further enhanced the immersion in the story. The game itself is divided into 3 acts, where each act covers different years of Hawk's life as he or she gets older. There are 3 additional DLCs. The first one, the Exiled Prince, mainly serves to provide you with a new ally in the game named Sebastian, who has his own set of unique abilities. The second, Mark of the Assassin, gives you a better understanding of the Qunari society. And the third, Legacy, is nice prep work for the next game, Dragon Age Inquisition, and I believe it'll also have implications in the upcoming Dragon Age Dreadwolf. You'll have a ton of side quests. From simple fetch quests like gathering ingredients for a herbalist, thankfully those are not too many, up to investigating Hawk's own family history. And some loyalty quests for your companions. The story is wonderfully complex, and many of the side quests are directly tied to it, which gives them more sense and purpose. Location-wise, you'll spend a good portion of the game within the city of Kirkwall, but it does offer multiple locations, and you'll also have many quests outside of it, like on the Wounded Coast or on Sandamount. Even though you have many locations within the same town, the game devs tried their best to make them look very distinct, and you definitely notice the difference. Let's have a look at some notable characters in the game aside from our main protagonist Hawk. I'll name the companions here only and the main antagonists, as there's simply too many characters throughout the entirety of the game to list more of them. But I'll have to say here that all of them were really fantastically written, most are truly memorable, and they all have their own agendas and history. Varric is a crossbow-wielding dwarven companion, having his own rooms in the Hanged Man. And that name is meant really literally, seeing as there's a really huge statue of a hanging man mounted on the front wall of the tavern, as you can see now on the screen. The dwarf asks Hawk to join an expedition to the Deep Roads in the first act, allowing him or her to start a better life in Kirkwall and slowly rise to fame. He's also the narrator of the whole story for Hawk and the only ally whom you'll encounter later in Dragon Age Inquisition. Over the course of the game, he grows so much on you that you don't even find it weird anymore in the end that his greatest love is Bianca, his crossbow, his very large crossbow. But jokes aside, I think he's one of the best written characters in this game. Fenris is an elf whom Hawk meets while he's trying to hide from his former master's hunters. The elven warrior has a history as a slave to a Tevinter magister and has probably seen the worst of the mages in his life. Therefore, if your Hawk would like to pursue a romance with him, you'd best avoid siding with the mages or don't take him with you to quests where you'll be sympathetic to them. Strangely enough, he has no objection to Hawk himself or herself being a mage in case of a romance. I found this a bit weird, honestly, and I think he shouldn't have been a romance option for a mage in the first place, but that's just my own personal opinion. He's one of the strongest, if not the strongest, warriors in the Dragon Age series, which is mainly due to his lyrium-infused skin tattoos, and the elf is basically the tank between the companions. A good choice for battle quests if your Hawk is a rogue or a mage. I'm not sure who'd win a contest in broodiness though, Fenris or Yorveth from the Witcher universe. But replaying parts of the game for this bit makes me think now he'd be the winner here. He's not exactly what you'd call cheerful, and more often than not he's giving off some gloomy vibes. Although his witty and sarcastic remarks are not half bad either. Isabella, the secretive pirate captain, is in the game a captain without a ship, spending time in the Hanged Man Tavern after losing it, including the crew, in a storm on the sea near Kirkwall. She's a potential love interest for Hawk, and you'll not be able to shake the feeling that there's always something more than what she reveals to you. The beautiful pirate plays an important role during Act 2 of the game, and you have to be careful about Hawk's choices here. Isabella is not exactly a law-abiding citizen, and if your Hawk will try to do things right and by the book, she might simply disappear and won't be available for the rest of the game anymore. Which happened to me, and as I didn't have an older save in the game unfortunately, with her included, I had only limited options to show her here for you. Isabella is, aside from Varric, the only rogue companion within the game if we omit the DLCs. So if your Hawk is a mage or a warrior, it might be worth trying to keeping her in the party, even if Hawk has to do something a bit more shady. Evelyn is one of the more serious, but not broody, allies and friends in the game. This is understandable though, knowing her personal history and seeing how many losses she had to endure in her life. Hawk will meet her even before arriving in Kirkwall, and depending on your actions and interactions with Evelyn, you can have a very strong friendship built up with her. She joins the city guard upon arrival in the town and manages through her righteous actions to secure the position of the captain of the guard later on. Evelyn is definitely someone whom Hawk can always count on, and I liked her strong, decisive, yet very compassionate character. The sword and shield wielding warrior is also a very valuable ally in fights and has, I believe, the best defensive capabilities from all the Dragon Age 2 companions. Meryl is an elven mage who will help Hawk the first time he or she arrives on Sandemount. There's a large group of Dalish elves living at the mountain's base, and she's next in line to Keeper Maretari, the leader of this particular group of elves. While Meryl has a vast amount of knowledge about the Dalish, their history and their specific type of magic and rituals, she is very inexperienced when it comes to the rest of the world and other races. She therefore comes across very often as naive, but if you really listen to her remarks or what she says in her dialogues with Hawk, you'll come to realize that she's a very logical person, offering some good helpful information for the resolution of the Mages vs Templars conflict. Meryl is also quite aware of the dangers that spirits and demons in general represent and about the consequences of her actions. Over time, you come to realize that she often carefully examines all the possible positive and negative outcomes before deciding how to proceed in a certain situation. Considering this, you'll see her personality and party banter remarks as quite witty, and I've had fun watching her later in the game, how she inconspicuously tried to prod some of Hawk's companions to some reaction on certain subject matters, which they, of course, falsely interpreted as naive questions. Anders is, simply put, a mage on the run from the Templars. But Anders being Anders, things are not always what they seem. Aside from having a healing clinic for the poor in Darktown, he's not just any human mage, but a former Grey Warden and a rogue mage who tried to escape the Circle of Magi multiple times before being successful in his endeavor. The biggest drive for doing this, and also for him to leaving the Grey Wardens, is definitely his strong need and unrelenting drive for personal freedom. Anders is also a very firm defender of the freedom for all mages, and his passionate fight against the oppression of the mages by the Templars borders almost on fanaticism. He has a huge distaste for demons and blood mages though. That seems to be a very virtuous and ethical belief, of course, that is, until Hawk uncovers that there's a spirit living inside of Anders whom he calls Justice. That spirit looks throughout the game to be more a very vengeful demon, and this realization for Hawk will definitely pose a conundrum when deciding on whether or not to help Anders during his loyalty quest. There are 3 important antagonists in this game. The Kunaris leader Arishok during Act 2, with whom you'll have a small boss fight at the end of the act. Then there is the Knight Commander of the Templars, Meredith, who is the final boss within the game in Act 3, regardless of whether you side with the mages or not, and it was definitely a great finale to the game in my opinion. Aside from that, there is also Corypheus from the DLC Legacy, introducing him before the Dragon Age Inquisition game, and let me tell you, that fight with him is really very tough. I would say that Act 1 doesn't have an antagonist, as it gets you used to the city, establish friendships, and make new acquaintances. The act itself ends with the expedition to the Deep Roads to obtain some more wealth for Hawk and his or her family. A small self-promo here on this spot. If you like my content so far, I'd be really grateful if you'd hit that subscribe button below or like and share this vid. It'll help to improve the visibility of this channel and reach out to more viewers who might also like it. Thank you very much already in advance. The game comes with 4 difficulties: Casual, Normal, Hard and Nightmare. And there is a significant increase in challenge when moving from normal to hard. Although some reviews stated that they found the normal difficulty too easy during the majority of the game, and that fights can be played without pausing the game or more tactical planning, they've also admitted having encountered various elite enemies during some minor side quests and that they've had trouble finishing them, which mirrored exactly my own experience with this difficulty setting. From the looks of it, the various difficulties in Dragon Age 2 don't seem to be completely balanced during the entirety of the game, meaning I'd have expected a gradual increase in the toughness of my enemies based on Hawk's level and progress within the game, but unfortunately it's not always working out. So this is one of the details that are not so great within the game, which you should keep in mind when starting a new playthrough. What isn't so easy to fix is the game's spawning of enemies. They're often swarming you out of nowhere, and due to their speed of attacks, it's not so simple to plan ahead in a fight and apply a good strategy. I'm afraid this is a feature that will be a bit annoying regardless of the difficulty setting you're playing on. Another feature that was commonly criticized in the past was the inventory that was lacking a good management system, and players often complained about it being full too quickly, especially with some additional armor and weapon mods. I'd strongly advise to use the backpack mod to increase the inventory size and also the storage chests within each act's home base for Hawk. The contents of the storage chests do transfer from one act to another, so this way you won't lose anything you would like to keep, and at the same time you'll have enough spare room in your inventory during quests. The items you wear and carry, anything from armor and weapons to belts and rings, are rated with a star system. The more stars, the more valuable the item, of course, and the more buffs it should give to the wearer. This is also not completely balanced and true. I've seen 3-star items, especially accessories, in mid-game that far outmatch some 5-star items during the game's later stages, and I've made good use of them before I had some special mods installed that came with better equipment. While there are lots of options to customize your Hawk, the original game certainly lacked sufficient customization for your companions, especially when it came down to their armor. This was thankfully fixed via a plethora of mods, and you have now the option to use vastly different armors or entire armor sets, as you can also see on my playthrough, which was heavily modded. And last but not least, in terms of the negative reviews, the repetitive maps. While the general city layout of Kirkwall is unique and most of the areas have distinct features, as mentioned before, some of the smaller maps, mostly caves or underground passages, are painfully repetitive, and if you're playing the game a second or third time, you'll know the layout of those by heart. This was commonly attributed to the game being pushed out by EA too early, before the BioWare devs could really finish it, and this way they were forced to reuse some of the layouts. Which wouldn't have been such a big problem if the relevant quests would have been further apart from each other, but unfortunately this wasn't the case here, and the players have noticed it very quickly. Mind you, the development cycle between Dragon Age Origins and Dragon Age 2 was really just a few months. Origins was released in November 2009 and Dragon Age 2 in March 2011. For this short time span, we have to also acknowledge that despite the previously mentioned flaws, the game wasn't as bad as many criticized, and while it received mixed reviews from the players, it's still a fun game that many rated as enjoyable and decent. Each of the companions, including Hawk, has the same set of attributes available: strength, dexterity, magic, cunning, willpower, and constitution. And you should invest most points into those attributes that are needed for your or your companion's class. But don't neglect the others, as you won't have then enough resistances for specialized attacks from your enemies. Aside from that, each playable character has a set of abilities. Classes like Mage, Warrior, and Rogue have a few in common, which are the same for all, but then each character has specialized unique abilities. For example, Varric has Bianca, Fenris, Tevinter Fugitive, which includes Lyrium Ghost, a very powerful warrior ability. Anders has Vengeance with a huge healing ability bonus, and so on. What is unique here is how the friendship status, or Hawk's hostility towards his or her companions, influences their own skills. Each ally has a special skill tree which offers a different bonus if they're Hawk's friend, and a different one if they perceive Hawk as a rival. If you want to be on friendly terms with all of them, it will have to be a very careful balancing act from your side playing Hawk, because the entire point of the story is based on your decision whether you support the mages or not. Your companions have vastly different opinions on that topic, and if you don't plan ahead, you might upset some of them. Just to give you an example, Fenris is very much against the mage's freedom due to his personal history. So if you choose to take him with you to quests where you will support the mages, then you'll lose his friendship very quickly and it will be hard to re-establish it back again. The same goes also, for example, for Anders, who is basically Fenris's exact opposite with his view on this matter. So try to think ahead when choosing your party for some of the quests. If you're not playing as a mage, I highly recommend taking Anders with you as a healer to tougher quests on higher difficulties. You can manage also without him with the use of health potions that you can supply also for your allies, but it's more time and money consuming than a healing mage in the party. In general, the abilities of Hawk and his or her companions are coming in two types: active and passive. The passive ones can be turned on and off at any time and usually remain that way until again turned off or on, even outside of any skirmishes. Those include buffs like deflecting more damage or having increased attack stats. The active ones are skills which are used directly in a fight, and you use one at a time as they require a short cooldown period before you're able to use another one. The dialogues are very important in this game. They do not just define how Hawk will be perceived by other characters, but his or her choices will have smaller or bigger impacts on the plot of the whole game, and you'll often get to see directly the results within the story. Regarding the dialogues, I've enjoyed seeing my choices reflected in Hawk's personality and how her surroundings reacted to her. You can play it either nice, be a bastard, or just go through life with a ton of sarcasm and humor. In case you run into an old friend or foe of one of your companions and that particular ally is in the party, you have the option to have them make the choice on what happens instead of Hawk. I felt this was a nice touch from the writers, as it made your companions feel even more alive. They had not just their own personality and history, but were seen as active participants in the game, and it helped to strengthen the bond between Hawk and his or her friends. You have several romance options in Dragon Age 2. For both male and female Hawk, you can choose between Isabella, Meryl, Enders, and Fenris, as already mentioned before. If you have the Exiled Prince DLC and you're playing as a female hawk, then you also can romance Sebastian. As I've mentioned already in my vid for The Witcher 2, keep in mind that this game was developed on an older engine, so don't expect the graphics to be on par with today's AAA RPGs using, for example, Unreal. The devs used the Eclipse engine, the same as for Dragon Age Origins, and for the Dragon Age Inquisition game they already used Frostbite, so there is a clear difference in the visuals for the player. But as you can see on the screen from the gameplay, the game still offers a good level of details, both the environment as well as the characters' facial expressions, for example. Plus, the game is by now officially 12 years old in 2023. Considering all this, I would say the game is still very much enjoyable to look at, and the graphics shouldn't be an issue if you would like to play the game these days. There's more cinematics in the game than Dragon Age Origins, and I really enjoyed seeing that aside from just simple dialogues or quick cutscenes. By the way, I'm linking the review for The Witcher 2 at the end of this vid, as it was released in the same year as Dragon Age 2, so you can compare both games' graphics also this way and judge for yourself whether you like them or not. The music for the game was composed by Inon Zur, who was also working in the past, for example, on Fallout, Prince of Persia, or recently Starfield. Some tracks are really standing out. I love the main theme or the tavern music, for example. I'll be honest though, and personally, aside from the previously mentioned tracks, I found the music quite gloomy, heavy, and sometimes even depressing. Despite my own view, I have to admit that overall the music fits the game very well, and the epic orchestral tracks were on point in many of the battle scenes. The highlight for me was definitely the credits' unforgettable song I'm Not Calling You a Liar, written and performed by Florence and the Machine. That one is really great to listen to even today and was the perfect track after finishing the game. Otherwise, as for the in-game sounds and NPC chatter, I did have the same issue here with the battle comments from Hawk and my companions as with some of the maps. They were very repetitive, and after a while you were looking for a mod to just either turn them off or change them somehow into different variations. But thankfully there are a few mods available to enhance this side of the game. The Ultimate Edition of the game, which is available for purchase these days, has, aside from all the DLCs, also the Black Emporium edit, which appears as a separate location on your map in the game. You can change Hawk's appearance here, gather additional runes, formulas and recipes in new stores. This way you won't miss out on any unique items within the game, so make sure to check it out once you're playing. As we're already mentioning mods, some might not be so easy to install, so I definitely recommend to read very carefully through the instructions, for example on Nexus mods, to make sure it's all working as intended. There are also some vids still available here on YouTube on how to mod the game, so you should definitely check those out if you want to do this. As with most BioWare games, the party banter in Dragon Age 2 is priceless, and the companions' characters and own agendas are clearly reflected here. Whether it's Meryl's supposed naivety, Fenris's cynicism, or Evelyn's no-nonsense persona. If you're going to play the game for the first time, I would recommend to take the time and pause for a moment when the banter starts. Well, after all is said and done, is the game still worth it to be played today, 12 years later? While a lot of the players' criticism is still valid, the good thing is that many of the issues can be easily fixed via mods, whether it's the customization of your allies, your weapons and armor, or whether it's the small size of the inventory. Some will of course remain, and there's nothing to do about those, like the mentioned repetitive maps. But if you're impatiently expecting the next installment in the series, Dragon Age Dreadwolf, and you haven't played Dragon Age 2 yet, I would definitely recommend it. If for nothing else, then for the relatable main character, the complex interesting story, the ties to Dragon Age Inquisition, and the additional information you get here for Dragon Age's lore that might prove useful in Dreadwolf later. The cost of the game today on Steam is a ridiculous price of €5.99, still valid for a few days. So if you don't have the game yet and don't want to invest too much money into an older game, this is the right time to grab a copy if you're interested in playing it. I sincerely hope this review helped you a bit in case you haven't played the game yet and wondering if you should. And I'd love to know who was your favorite companion in the game if you already did play it and what quest you liked the most. Did you side with the mages or were you fighting against them? What class did you choose for your hawk and why? Don't hesitate to leave a comment below what you think of the game and if you found this video useful. Thank you all for watching, stay tuned and game on!